Hey, this is a brief introduction. The majority of this video is just going to be audio. This morning I sat down with Joshua Mills of the YouTube channel The Art of Money Saving, and we had a really good conversation. We did try recording a video podcast over Zoom, but unfortunately the internet connection wouldn't allow it. So we ended up resorting to the phones. It was the first time we've spoken, I was going to say in person. We weren't in person. COVID doesn't allow that anymore. It was the first time we've spoken properly. We've been sending messages back and forth for the last couple of days. We talk about money, obviously, the trials and tribulations of setting up a YouTube channel and trying to maintain content and things like that, and a whole host of other things. It was a pretty good discussion, so I would urge you to listen to it. You can listen to it on his channel as well. Not that you'd want to hear it twice, and I suppose if you're watching this, you're already listening to it on my channel, but please enjoy this conversation, and I will see you next time.
Oh, this is gonna be fun, man. It's a shame the video thing didn't work, but I mean, for a podcast, this is the idea, isn't it? So
exactly. We can always try again another time. I was thinking if this goes well, we could make this a regular little monthly catch up or something like that.
Definitely, yeah, 100%.
Yep. The more content, the better.
More content, the better. 100%.
Yeah.
And we're both Welsh, so that's always that's always a plus.
Yeah. I feel as though your accent's slightly stronger than mine, despite you live in London. Is that right?
No way, really, because I get such. That's so interesting because I get a real mix. I get people saying you sound so Welsh, and then I lived in Germany for a couple of years, and people say I sound German, and then sometimes I sound American as well, apparently. So, but I think you've got a classic South Walian twang.
my voice is so monotone and dull. It's hard to pick up any kind of twang, I think.
No, it's a rustic twang. I like it.
Oh, perfect. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So yeah, I basically I've just got a couple of little questions. It sounds like I'm interrogating you. Yeah, just to kick off some discussion, really.
Sure. Yeah, shoot. I'm intrigued to hear what you're gonna ask.
So, mostly it's based around the YouTube content that you're making at the moment, because I think you're a relatively new channel. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, started just after the lockdown.
Okay.
So it's
for what reason? Any particular reason, or?
Well, I discovered personal finance community about like a year and a half ago, and I mean I was always interested in it, but I didn't realize it was a thing. And I know you know about Dave Ramsey as well and the baby steps, all that kind of stuff. But I never knew that there was this kind of structure and that people talked about it. And it's this strange thing. It's either a hobby or an interest or just something you do. So that was really fascinating to me that I discovered this this side of the internet that I never seen before. So I thought, well, why not try and contribute and get involved? So I never really had the time up until now, and I'm starting to realize it's it's a lot of effort actually to keep the videos going and to keep the content. But it's really that's what I've loved about lockdown, is giving me like an aim, and it's also like a passion. Talking to people like you, I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I mean, I started my YouTube channel probably about 10 years ago, but it was never for anything specific. And it was only after I found like a small a small piece of accidental success talking about Moneybox that I thought,
yeah, those are your most popular videos, right?
Yeah, I don't know why. I have no idea
Brilliant.
why.
Brilliant.
But yeah, it was only after that I started thinking about YouTube as a, actually producing content for it rather than just a place to upload things that, I was haphazardly filming.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's the right way to go, though, because you started with something, and then people really enjoyed what you're doing, so they enjoyed the Moneybox content, and that's how I came across you as well. It's just the Moneybox review. I was like, oh, this guy does a really good job. Like, it's insightful because you break it down, you give the numbers. It's always you're full of humor as well, so I think people appreciate that. And then when you start from a place as a content creator, when you start knowing that people enjoy this, so I can do more of it, that's a really good place to begin, because you know that people are kind of on your side and they're enjoying what you're doing.
Definitely. I've got to admit as well, since I became aware of your channel, it has inspired me to get more deliberate with the content that I'm putting up.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
So that's one thing I was going to ask about, is because it seems like clear to me that your channel it has a focus. It's money orientated. It is personal finance orientated. Whereas I've sort of got an eclectic. I know I put videos up of my dogs and me shooting an air rifle in the back garden and all sorts of stuff like that.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I did a little. Sorry, I did a little bit of research about that, like before starting the channel. I was like, well, is there anything I need to know? And one thing that people did say is I had like lots of ideas of what I could do, and I thought, kind of like you were saying, that maybe I could do a bit of this, a bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I read, people are saying that people are less likely to engage in those channels, because if you go and you view the channel and they're not kind of clear what it's about, then they're less likely to kind of engage with it. So that kind of stuck with me. I thought you need to have a clear purpose.
Yeah.
And interestingly for me as well, that my first video was a review of Starling Bank, and that's been my most popular video. But since then, it's not taken off as much. So it's interesting that people like the reviewal videos probably the most, which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
It is. I think that's one of the, well, maybe not a mistake I made, because I didn't set out this channel with the intention of, making anything of it, but it's definitely something I'm sort of debating whether or not I need to change at the minute.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because like it's true what you said. People come to a channel for a specific, content theme, I suppose. So yeah, I'm just wondering now what I can do with mine to make it a bit more clear cut that this video is about finance. This video is about lifestyle or something like that. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's been good seeing, because I mean you from what I can see, you've put out a lot of content lately, and you're very active on Instagram. And have you got a Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter. I kind of thought, right, well, now is the time. So I did a website, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. What else did I do? Is there anything I missed? I think that's it. Oh, there's a new social media called Parler, so I thought I'll join that if it's new. Stick the content up on there. I think that's it. But I mean, on the podcast as well, of course. But there is a case of biting off more than you can chew, and if you're starting all of these platforms, you have to kind of commit. And what's interesting for me, for example, is the Instagram community is very different from the YouTube community, I think. So I look at the analytics of my Instagram following, and it's 70% women. And the posts, I think the things that resonate with people on YouTube don't on Instagram. So I've had to kind of change tact a little bit and realize that for Instagram, it's more about the journey of personal finance and funny things and light-hearted things and inspirational quotes, the classic Instagram inspirational quote. But with YouTube, I feel like more sincere on YouTube. I can be myself and I can talk about things. You have that 7 or 10 minutes or whatever your video is, and you can talk about things that interest you. And I like that more than just kind of a photo and a small caption. But
yeah,
you got to try everything.
A bit more long form on YouTube, and you can sort of let your I always say I struggle to have a personality, but you let your personality out a little bit, and you can.
Oh man, your videos are full of personality. Like your last video, like I loved it. It's so creative as well, which I work in the arts, so I really appreciate that. And you like the way you did the subscribe button, and you like kind of crawled out from under it. I was like, man, that's brilliant. How does he do it?
This is how I spend my time as a 35-year-old.
Yeah, the inner child.
Well, I think I just really enjoy creating, and I love editing. So, I went to university for journalism, film, and broadcasting.
Right. Cool.
And I never used my degree because we ended up running the family business. So this is kind of a way to sort of satisfy that. I would call it. It's a passion. It is. I love it. Even though I'm I could waste hours and hours on the minute details of editing keyframes and things like that. I just love to do it. So it's whether people watch or not, I'm going to put it up,
Well, that's an interesting question in itself, isn't it? And I did a podcast last week, and the guy asked me that. He said, as a content creator, what is the aim for you? Are you doing it because you want those views and you want to become an influencer or whatever it is, or are you doing it because you enjoy the process of being creative and you feel that the content that you're putting out there has some kind of meaning or it can help people?
Yeah,
And I think with the money box videos, it's it's great because if people haven't done any investing before, they've heard of this app, the first thing they'll do is go on YouTube, and then they see you there, and they're like, oh great, okay, this gives me a more informed idea what it's all about.
I think one of the most cringeworthy moments of my life was when I got a text message from an ex-girlfriend who said she'd searched Moneybox, and I was the first thing that came up.
No way! And that's amazing.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm happy for people I don't know to watch these videos, but when it comes to people I do know, I tend to get a little bit shy about it. But do you feel that kind of thing, or are you? I know I sounds a bit creepy. I did a little looking into other things you do, and you're I was going to say a talent coach, not a talent coach, like a voice coach. Is that right?
Yeah. So I mean, my main profession is I'm an opera singer. But of course, at the moment, all the theatres are closed, so there's not much of that going on. So, like in the meantime, I've been coming up with lots of different side hustles and ideas like that. And I think that for me, that's kind of part of the whole money channel. So, the Art of Money Saving is what the channel is called, and that's the whole idea behind it. Is sharing these ideas, and the whole personal finance community, Dave Ramsey thing. They're very pro. Be your own boss. Do what you can. Have a gazillion side hustles, and I like that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. But it's not something that's particularly encouraged in my profession. So interestingly enough, there's been quite a lot of resistance to do anything like that up until now, and particularly with money as well. Yeah, I think resistance from myself, but also as a profession as well. Like people. Some people are, of course, they have this, they have side businesses and things that they do, but they tend not to talk about it so much, or it's because you're trained in the thing. It's kind of like you were saying, you trained in the thing that you did at university, but you're not doing that thing, and there's a sense like, oh, maybe I should be using the degree, or should be doing this instead of that, but that's not life, is it? And I think anyone, like credit to you, you've started your own YouTube channel, it's going well, you have a created outlet. I think it should be thought like, we should think about it like that, rather than pointing the finger and saying, well, shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, well, why?
And plus I think it's, without giving away too much information about your personal finances, I think it's good to discuss, it's a bit of what's the word, transparency about how people think about money and how people are behaving with their money, because I'd never considered this kind of thing until about 3 years ago. I just spent my money, had credit cards, did all that sort of stuff, and it was only after finding Dave Ramsey that I realised I was behaving really poorly with money, to be honest.
So he was the protagonist. He really kind of made you see the error of your ways.
Definitely. And thinking, like I say, I'm 35 now, thinking about the future. How am I gonna retire? Where am I gonna live? That sort of thing. But then again, I kind of like the ability on YouTube to be a bit open about things that people don't discuss. Because I saw another one of your videos, which I think you mentioned briefly, that finances aren't an open topic for people.
Well, that's right.
Why not? Why shouldn't we discuss these things? Because it helps other people realize that maybe they're doing things that they could change and put themselves on a better path.
Definitely. Yeah, 100%. And the thing that I'm finding now is by doing the channel, the whole idea for the channel for me is to open the conversation, to speak with people. And people are doing that, but it's really interesting. So they're doing it in like a more secretive way. So they contact me, through private messenger, and they say, oh, I'm really, really great, and you've given me a lot to think about, and what can I do about this? And oh, that's really cool. Like, of course I'm not a financial advisor, but I enjoy talking about these things with people. But they don't engage with the page. So they don't share, they don't like anything. So had they not sent me that message, I would have no idea that they saw it. So like, that's the other side of the coin, isn't it? As content creators, we're putting things out there in the hope that people engage with them. But unless people are engaging with the material, you don't really know what people think. So that's the kind of the hard thing about it, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe we should point out at the minute that neither of us are financial advisors.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, not a financial advisor.
No, for me, it's just my own experiences with what I'm doing, hoping that other people can gain something from it. But I always
Definitely.
worry that, that you open yourself up to liability for if somebody
Yeah,
says
you do have to be careful. You have to state, look, not a financial advisor. But it's also important to say you can draw upon your own experiences
yeah,
and life
definitely.
experiences, and you do learn things along the way that will have value to other people. And I keep thinking, like, what have I learnt in my life? What can I pass on? How can I help people? And that's the exciting thing about the channel. I'm kind of intrigued to know how you came across Dave Ramsey, because once you type in Dave Ramsey, I mean, he's going to come for you, and there's thousands of videos. But unless you go out of your way to find it, like, what did you do? Did you type in like how to become debt free, or?
If I remember rightly, I just searched for podcasts on how to get better with money because I realized that I, I th- how it was is I bumped into an old friend who ran her own business as a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying that she loves her job. She makes a lot of money doing it, not in a bragging way, but just that she does. And then I was thinking, my annual salary isn't that great, so how can I get better with money? I just searched for that, and it came up with Dave Ramsey as one of the podcasts it suggested.
Brilliant.
And so I gave it a try, and honestly, I fell in love with it. He does like 3 hours a day, and I used to listen to every single episode religiously. So it led
Dave
to,
binge.
yeah, definitely. It led to things like, I picked up a job delivering pizzas for Domino's briefly just to get some extra
No
cash in.
way! I used to deliver
Um,
pizzas for Domino's.
Yeah, I used to love it. It was such a great job
Boom. Yeah.
because, you just got freedom out in the car. Nobody's sort of breathing down your neck. You just come and go as you please and deliver. I mean, I love pizza. So making other people happy by giving them a pizza, it
That's
doesn't get
amazing,
better than
dude.
that. Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
that's how it came about. But so with the channel, I always find this quite a difficult subject to talk about because I've got a bit of a block, I think, on receiving money. So with the content that I'm producing, I'll be honest, I am hoping to monetize it at some point.
Sure.
and make this my side hustle. But I've always had a bit of a block on asking for things because you want to feel like you're providing value before you ask for anything off other
Yeah,
people.
that's true. Yeah, I
Is
know
that
what you mean.
is that a direction you're hoping to go in, or
I
is
mean,
that fair to
I
ask? Is that
think
okay to ask?
no, of course it is. Yeah, no problem. I mean, the thing that I've been thinking about a lot with these side hustles, and this became really apparent in the lockdown, is there's lots of different types of side hustles that you can have. So some of the things that I was doing, so whether it's public speaking and confidence coaching or something like that, that's quite the labor and the time is quite demanding, and the amount that I charge at the moment is very low, so it's not a big earner. But my whole idea behind that is that you build your base, you get some reviews, and you start to build a client base and go from there. But with something like YouTube, it's kind of the same, but very different in that if there's a video out there and it continues to get views, you don't need to do any more work for that to get more views. It's already out there. And I kind of liked that idea, thinking, yeah, maybe I could make something of this. Like, I don't the idea of monetizing it, yeah, sure, that would be awesome, but I think it takes a lot of hard work to get there. So for me at the moment, I just want to be consistent in what I'm doing, being creative, and I'm obviously quite far behind you because you started your channel a long time ago and you have more experience. So I'm still kind of testing the waters and seeing, what's important to me. And I was saying yesterday that when I go back to working full time, having to do like 2 videos or 3 videos a week, it's going to be quite a challenge, like to keep the momentum of the content going and doing the job. But I mean, it's obviously possible because people do it all the time. There's lots of finance folks that do that. So
Definitely. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think the lockdown for me as well meant that I had also more time to create content. So yeah, I mean, I think
definitely.
you're doing a great job though. Like I say, you've been putting out an awful lot of content recently, and it's really good to see.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's a bit of a learning curve. Like my first video, you just kind of have to blag it a bit, and you're like, well, this doesn't look great, but
Yeah,
it's a video, so I'll stick it up. And ironically, it's the one that has the most views. And as you learn more, you start to think, well, this needs to be like this, or this person does it this way, so maybe I should do it like that. And you start learning, tips and tricks from other people.
Yeah,
But
I think
also, you need to.
Go
Sorry,
on,
go ahead.
sorry. I was going to say
You,
you
you,
you definitely develop a style as well over time. You sort
Definitely.
of realize how the video editing goes, how putting it together is.
100%. Yeah. And what I love about your style is you have a really good balance of kind of insightful content, so really interesting topics, but then just kind of being humorous and being yourself as well. That's really important. And not everyone has that skill, actually. It is a real skill, because you have like the die-hard finance vloggers, and the information is very, I invest in this ETF and da, da, da. And it's kind of like, okay, you want that stuff. You go to watch it when you're thinking about what to invest in. But on the other hand, you have people that speak only about kind of how money makes you feel. And so I want to do a balance. I want to provide people with information that's kind of interesting, but also being yourself and kind of just not making it too dry. I think I need to be a bit more humorous and lighthearted, perhaps.
I'm not sure. I think you do a really good job of it at the moment, and like you say, it's a relatively new channel. So, you're a confidence coach, so I'm sure you know what it's like to have those sort of nerves being in front of a camera for the first time. But I mean, I've found that the more you do it, the better you get.
Definitely. It's a bit of practice. Yeah. And once you start to see yourself on, you spend all those hours editing, you're like, well, that's not so good. I mean, one of the practical things is my camera sucks. It's not good. I mean, it's a fantastic camera for the microphones. It's good microphones. Not that I know how to use them that well, but the actual quality of the video kind of sucks. So that's another thing. It's like when you're thinking about the side hustle and you're thinking about the channel, you're like, oh, when do I upgrade? When does this become a thing that I start, investing money in? And I'm not quite at that stage yet. I feel like I can get a couple more videos out of this horrible camera, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, the most important thing, I guess, is the message.
Definitely.
As long as you're speaking about something that's worthwhile, then people will watch, I think.
100%. Yeah, that's really important. Like, interestingly, do you find it easy to come up with content ideas? Because like this week, I was really scratching my head. I was like, right, what can I talk about? And it took me a good 2 days to really think. Because the last week I felt like I was winging it a bit, and I didn't really have a clear plan. And I want to talk about stuff that means something. And it's harder to do that when you're on your own, I guess, because you're left to your own devices, and you just have to come up with these ideas by yourself.
It's nice to have somebody to bounce off. This is why I like doing things like this, because it's not just me in front of a camera speaking about something. There's a back and forth.
Totally.
And it gets the creative juices flowing.
That's right.
To put it that way. I don't know really. I've got a list on my phone of about 7 different video ideas for varying subjects, but I do find I've got to have the inspiration to sit down and actually do it. And there's been times when I've sat down in front of the camera and I've talked for 10 minutes and I just think this isn't it today. So I scrap all of that and just come back to it another day.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because it does get frustrating when it's not going as well as you hoped. And I've had a couple of days like that. Like when there was one day, it was like 31 degrees in London. I live in this kind of tiny room, and it was so hot. And I was like, I got to record this video. I've got to do it today. And I was just sweating all the way. It was like a nightmare. So, right, not doing it anymore. Doing it tomorrow.
Have a little tantrum and come back to it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I've been there. So have you got any sort of hard and fast rules when it comes to money? Like I saw a tweet from Dave Ramsey yesterday which said, act your wage. People who win with money live on less than they make, period. If you can't pay cash, don't buy it. Have you got any hard and fast rules that you follow, or maybe just like the most important one to you at the minute when it comes to money?
It has changed over time. One thing that has always been very important for me is to live below your means. So I absolutely agree with Dave Ramsey. And I watched a video yesterday, Chris Hogan. He was talking about how this guy working in the US as a janitor, he passed away with 8 million in his bank account, and I was like, wow, okay, that's the power of compound interest right there. But yeah, for me, I go through different phases of life, and I think where I am right now is that I've built a certain amount of wealth already. What's very important for me is to keep that invested in the market for as long as I can, and in the meantime to try and still live a nice, comfortable life, and hopefully to continue adding to the investment pot when I can. I mean, it's difficult for me at the moment because, of course, in March all of the theaters closed, so I essentially lost all of my work for like 6 months. So that was quite a big challenge, but it was a big lesson as well because it made me realize I was like totally prepared, and I don't have to worry about going into a job or that I don't want to do or anything like that. I've really prepared. My emergency fund is fully stocked and ready to go, and it's amazing, like that sense of freedom and feeling, okay, yeah, I don't have to jump into anything. I can take my time, figure out what I want to do, and you can't really put a price on that. It's really, really amazing. But also there is this kind of British sense of I don't know if shame is the right word, but just kind of like, well, you shouldn't talk about that because other people aren't in that position. And I find myself in this, it's like a catch-22 where other people will make fun of your financial decisions, making sure that you put money into your investments or living below your means and not living like the fancy life. But then when it comes to the lockdown situation, they haven't got their emergency fund ready, and I don't know. I'm kind of caught between told you so and, oh man, that really, really sucks, and of course wanting to help people. But yeah, I don't know. It's a really tricky one.
But again, if you're talking about this kind of thing, people hearing it might think, well, next time I'll be better prepared. So I do think I do think, like I said, transparency is important. Not 100% transparency. I'm not going to give out my account number and sort code.
No, of course.
Unless people want to send me money, that's fine. Yeah, but
yeah, transparency, it's important, definitely. And there's not enough of it. There's not enough.
No, well, we're working to change that by the look of it. Somewhat accidentally, maybe, but I think we're doing an all right job.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah. Oh, great.
100%.
So yeah, is there anything else you wanted to mention, or
I want to ask more about your change in mentality. So, what was your previous life like? You were talking about credit cards, and was it like a very kind of lavish lifestyle, or were you just in a little bit of debt and it was quite easy to make the transition?
I definitely wouldn't say lavish. I think I wasn't putting as much, any thought into what I was doing with my money, really. So, I mean, the most lavish thing I think I bought was a £1,500 second-hand moped. But I took out a loan for that.
Sure.
Which ended up being a big mistake because the moped ended up getting stolen off the front drive. And
no.
Yeah. I'd spent a lot of time and effort respraying it a nice colour, and it ended up 2 kids took it off the driveway and burnt it in the woods, which was a bit of a shame.
No way. Oh.
Yeah, I had a phone call from the police who said, we found some mechanical parts in the woods. Could you go and identify the remains?
Oh,
felt like a child had gone missing or something. Yeah, so
that's such an odd way to put it.
It was, yeah. I was a bit taken aback, but it wasn't so much a lavish lifestyle, but I think I wasn't putting any thought into it. So, for example, my last year of university, I took out a student loan and ended up buying a TV and a PlayStation with it.
Right.
I was just using money in a stupid way, to be honest. And so I think maybe my lifestyle was a little bit more fun before I learned about money management, because now I do think I do still buy things that I like, but I plan for it.
Sure.
So it's not.
And that's
so
a big
frivolous.
difference, isn't it? Yeah, it is a big difference. And I think
Definitely.
that's something I'm learning as well, is like being being or striving for financial independence isn't about taking all the fun away. You can still have those things that you like. It just means that you might not buy them like instantaneously. You have to save up for them or whatever.
Yeah. I think I've heard Dave Ramsey put it this way, where it's not necessarily you have to pick one thing over the other. You can do both. You've just got to do everything in its own good time. So I'd like to replace my moped. I can't afford to do it yet, but I know that in a couple of years' time I'll be able to, with a little bit of intention.
Yeah. So do you find yourself following the baby steps now, or do you kind of do a UK kind of version, or do you just have you come up with the system yourself, or?
I really like the baby steps, but I don't follow them to the letter. So, for example, I've still got my student loan. I haven't paid that off yet, but I've started building up more of an emergency fund. So, I've skipped over baby step 2, that sort of thing. So I don't think I don't think it's like gospel. I'm sure it would work if you worked it, but to me, it's more of a nice way to think about money. And then I've sort of developed my own system of just being more mindful about what I'm doing with it. I do budget. I don't budget every month. I've got a standard budget because I know what's coming in and I know what's going out.
That's really good. Yeah, I watched your budget video. You have your spreadsheet, didn't you?
Right, yeah, and it stays the same every month unless I get like an increase in income, and then I'll adjust the figures, or if one of my bills goes up each month, that sort of thing. But generally it stays the same.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I just the main thing I get from Dave Ramsey is listening to other people's situations. So and you've talked about it before in one of your videos, that the income in America, you see some of these people on $300,000 a year.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And they've got debts of 500,000, and it's just I can't fathom that amount of money. No. I'd like to.
No. Yeah, it's hard to relate to.
It is.
It's so different. Like the income disparity is really huge. So I think that's one of the dangers when listening to Dave Ramsey, is not all of it is applicable. Like you said, student loans, it just really wouldn't make sense to pay off your student loan. Of course you can if you want to, and some people may end up paying it all off, but it doesn't really make sense in the same way. So he goes on his student loan rants, but tis different here. It's not so much a form of debt in the same way. It's more like a taxation, I guess. It just doesn't work
think
the
that's
same
true.
like a debt.
Yeah.
And it's the same with credit cards as well. Like I have a credit card. I use it very rarely, but you got the Section 75 protection. So if you're buying a laptop or a new sofa or something, you always put it on the credit card, because if the company goes bust, you got the Section 75 protections. And it is slightly different here in the UK, but that's fine. I think people are wise enough to know that. But I also think it can work. If I do agree, what's really fantastic with Dave Ramsey is he's so clear-minded about how he feels about debt, and I really like that. And for example, I was thinking about getting a property a couple of months ago, and this is really playing on my mind because the bank was saying, well, you could borrow up to this amount, and I was like, oh, what do I do? Do I buy a more humble abode, live within my means, and pay it off as quickly as possible, or do I go borrow as much as I can, get a 35-year mortgage or something? And there are so many extremes of thoughts, and the conclusion really for me is that it's best not to borrow that amount of money, and certainly not to push your limits. That's the big takeaway from Dave Ramsey, that it'll be nice, of course, to live in a nice area and to have 10 bedrooms or whatever, but it's better to live within below your means, and kind of comfortably so. And the whole pandemic thing, that's really helped me realize that as well, that even in a huge emergency like this, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can handle it. It's okay. And it gives you peace of mind, which I think is important in life.
Certainly, it makes me feel queasy when I think about people who have got a large amount of debt, and if something happens and goes wrong, you're stuck. So Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's
Good
stressful.
choice.
It really plays on people's mind. Like it really gets
Yeah.
them into a bad place in life. And there are lots of good organizations here that help you deal with debt management, and so that's really positive. But also that's hard for me as well, because there's a big debt free community on Instagram and on YouTube and stuff like that. But I didn't have like huge amounts of debt, so I have student debt. And when I was a student, I go into the overdraft and things like that, but I wasn't racking up like thousands. So I'm always trying to put myself in the shoes of people that were in debt and to think like them. But it's kind of hard sometimes. But you were talking about, you've changed your mind about, because you're doing the lifetime ISA, but now you're thinking about doing a conversion, right?
Well, when I started the Moneybox Lifetime ISA, it was because I was thinking about saving for retirement, because I don't currently have a pension system set up. So I was thinking the 25% bonus sounds like a great deal. So I just opened an account because it seemed like it was interesting at the time, and then I funded it, and I saw the balance increasing. I really enjoyed it. But then recently, my partner and I have decided. Basically, at the moment, we rent a flat off my parents in a building that they own.
Sure.
So she would like more space, which I can understand.
Right.
But the area that we live in is absolutely perfect. So that we're now thinking that instead of trying to buy a house elsewhere, we'd like to renovate the property that we're in. So it looks like the Lifetime ISA will now be used to purchase it off my parents, and then hopefully have enough money to do the renovations. So we've had an architect round to take some drawings, so it's exciting. We're just waiting to see what we can do with it. Yeah,
sure,
yeah. So there was a switch in intention from what I was going to use that money for. But what I found out the other day, I assumed that the Lifetime ISA was a kind of one or the other deal. It was either you buy your first home or you save for retirement. But I clarified that, and if you take out money to buy your first home, you continue to use the account to save for retirement, which I didn't realize at first.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so that's handy, because that'll help me out. Yeah.
Fantastic. I came across this book yesterday because I find myself constantly going in between these sorts of, going on Zoopla and looking up houses and doing all of this kind of stuff. And then thinking, well, would I be better served renting? Because I tend to move around quite a lot, and the idea of being stuck in one place, it sounds lovely, being in one place and having that kind of stability. But I mean, if I bought somewhere and then I got a contract in another country, it just doesn't really make much sense. So I came across this book. I think it's called I'll have to look it up. It's about basically not buying. I'm just going to look it up here. The Wealthy Renter, it's called, and it's by a Canadian author. Haven't read it yet, but I'm kind of intrigued to hear about that. I mean, there's no doubt that if you buy a home and you stay there over the long term, you're going to get a good deal. I mean, you never know what the interest rates on mortgages are going to do, but I mean, it's a long-term investment, happy days. But I think I'm kind of cautious about that because I see myself buying and then moving and then doing all of that kind of stuff, and it all kind of adds up these costs. Like moving homes is really costly
and stressful as well. It's one of the most stressful events in life, I think I've heard people say.
Totally, yeah. And one thing that I'm really bad at is DIY. And I was listening to this finance podcast the other day, and these guys are like, yeah, you just learn how to do it yourself and you'll save yourself so much money. And I'm like, man, I can't learn. I suck. I will never learn how to do DIY.
I'm a bit of a have-a-go hero. I do like to try myself, but fortunately I've never got in such a big mess that I've had to call an emergency builder in to do anything.
That's great, man. Lucky you.
Well, but I've never tried any big projects. Maybe that's the crucial part.
Yeah. Like, would you, with the architect designs, would you have a go yourself, or did you get someone else to do it?
Well, so we've got the architect come in, and he's going to design a whole new roof. But once that roof is done by proper real men builders, then I think I would quite like to have a go at putting up some stud walls internally. that sort of thing. But we'll see. If I've got enough money to pay somebody to do it, I'll have it done professionally. But it all depends on the budget. And budget's important.
Sure.
This is what I've been discussing with my partner now, is that you don't want to take out too much of a loan for a mortgage and then end up being house poor and not having enough money to enjoy, actually living in the house and going on holidays and things like that. So,
definitely,
I'm lucky that she's open to these discussions. So
that's really good.
Yeah, and I think, not to sound like not to brag or anything like that, but I think my interest in this has sort of rubbed off on her a little bit. So now we kind of think about this stuff together, as opposed
Brilliant.
to just, I've got my beliefs, she's got her beliefs, and we have arguments. It doesn't work like that, so that's great.
Right, yeah, because I mean, that's a big one, isn't it? You hear so many people that they're not on the same page, and then they get into arguments, and it's tricky. So it's really good that you've had the conversation on the same page, and yeah, of course you're not going to agree with everything, but that's life. So long as you can have a discussion together about it, then it's going to keep the conversation going. I think that's really good. Like, again, it's financial transparency, isn't it? Even in a
definitely.
relationship.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's not something I considered years ago, and I very nearly got into a bad situation when I first started listening to Dave Ramsey, and I think it came about because of the disparity between American and UK incomes and debt levels and things like that. Because I was hearing all these people on Dave's show saying I'm £50,000 in debt, I'm £100,000 in debt. And initially, before I got a grip on everything, I sort of thought, well, can I afford to go into debt? Because these people seem to be getting out of it quite easily. So should I just have a bit of a frivolous year and rack up a little bit of debt?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, should if these people are able to do it, is it worth me getting myself in that position? But fortunately, I sort of talked myself out of it. That would have been a big mistake if I'd done that. But I think it came from, like you said, hearing the disparity between the American numbers and the UK numbers.
Yeah, absolutely huge. So what's the end game for you? What's the end goal? You talk about Dave Ramsey and being inspired by the plan, but was there something that you thought, I want to do this in the future?
I think, like I said, I don't live a very lavish lifestyle. I don't like fast cars. I don't like expensive watches or anything like that. So it's literally just financial stability for the later years and being able to actually fully retire. Because, like my parents, they still work, and my dad's in his 70s now. He works because he enjoys it. He does love what he does. But I like the idea of being able to cut off at some point and just enjoy the rest of my life. So I think it's just that now. I just want, I want financial stability. How about you?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. To be in a position where you're able to decide what you want to do. And I'm not one of these people that thinks, okay, when I hit this age, then I will do nothing, because I just wouldn't find that interesting at all. But it'll give you more time to focus on projects that are interesting to you and you're passionate about. And yeah, I don't know when exactly that's going to be. Like, this is my problem with the whole kind of FIRE community. I don't kind of get on board with the FIRE idea, because it's a bit too aggressive for me. So the aggressive building of wealth means that you have to sacrifice so much in the short term. So, your current life, it means you can't go out to have a meal, or just enjoy anything nice, basically. And I really don't like that idea. But I also don't mind working a bit longer, because I really enjoy what I do. So I see myself working into my 50s. I mean, I would love to. And if I'm able, then if in my 50s I see that I've got, a pot of money and I don't have to do as much, then yeah, that's great. A lot of the plan is really dependent on the market. So that's a big part of my strategy is the investments. And yeah, that's a long-term plan. So you just gotta stay in the market and see how it goes. Like, that's a bit scary at the moment, of course, because everything's so volatile. I don't know how your Moneybox is doing, but I switched from Moneybox to Vanguard actually about a year ago, and not that long ago, sorry. and the Vanguard's been doing pretty well actually lately. It's up. It's almost recovered what it lost in the crash, and I'm just kind of waiting. I'm like, oh, is it going to crash again? You know, kind of thing.
Yeah, my money boxes seem to recover quite well. So at one point I was below the 25% returns on the lifetime ISA. But now it seems to be about 27-28%, so I am actually making some money off the investments as well, which is nice to see.
That's good.
But that brings up two questions. Can you explain briefly what the FIRE idea is? Because I will admit I'm not very well versed in that.
Sure. So it's an acronym: Financial Independence, Retire Early.
Right.
So
okay.
the whole idea is that, of course, time in the market, the longer you have your money in the stock market for the long term, the better. And the FIRE community is all about kind of building your wealth as quickly as possible in order to kind of achieve a particular number in your stocks and shares, so that they have what's called the 4% rule. So if you build wealth in your account and you calculate that by a certain age or by a certain amount in your account, you withdraw 4% annually. And by withdrawing the 4%, you're then able to live on that amount for the year. But then the stock market does its job and it replenishes itself, so that the fund never goes down.
Yeah.
Arguably. It sounds pretty cool. Like,
it beats the inflation rate.
Yeah, so if you're taking out 4% in a year and the markets are returning 7%, then you're still gaining 3% a year. Or, there's inflation as well, of course.
Great. Okay, I have heard that theory before, but I'd never heard the acronym. Well, I had heard the acronym. Sorry, I've seen your video mentioning it before, but never actually really knew what the details were.
Sure.
My other question.
Oh,
sorry. Go on.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, is there a kind of like a lifespan on the career of an opera singer? Can you do that kind of thing well into old age, or?
It depends what voice you have. Like, so for example, if you're bass and you have a very low speaking voice, you can sing until like your 80s and 90s. Like, I was working with a guy, and he was in his he was 85, and he was doing this opera Rosenkavalier, it's called, and he had like one line, and he came on, and it was like barely any voice left, but he was there, and actually he was Welsh as well, and he said to me, Josh, I'm doing this contract because my wife wants a new conservatory. And I was like, fair dues, that's sounds very reasonable to me. But it's a very precarious profession, particularly at the moment. So you don't really know how the arts world's gonna look. So it's a weird one. So I trained for 8 years, so arguably, it's as long as a doctor or a lawyer or something, but it's not as steady a career, unfortunately. So I mean, I hope to sing as long as I can, but I don't know what the future holds, and there's so many variables. So I may find myself doing something else. Who knows? How about you? Tell me about the family business.
So we look after other people's kids. It's a daycare, which is great.
Oh, awesome.
We all love it, and I suppose that will continue indefinitely, because there's always people having children. They always need care for the children.
Brilliant.
But it is quite, it's a very female-led industry, I would say. So I'm not sure how it's going to age being older men in that sort of position. Because the way we run it, it's my two siblings, my brother and my sister. So my sister's very much like the face of the company. Everybody loves her. The kids love her. The parents love her. And then we all take an equal share in the work. But yeah, that's interesting. But my other something I'd like to turn into a more substantial side hustle is photography.
Sure.
So again, speaking about retirement, that is something I would like to be able to retire and then focus more on that aspect of more of a hobby.
Brilliant.
But if you can make some money out of it, then all the better.
Definitely. And the thing about side hustles, if you start from a place of this is a hobby, this is what I enjoy doing, and you kind of slowly, it's like a slow burn, you build your client base and it happens more passively, this works really well, rather than saying sometimes it's better to do it passively than to say, right, I have a business and I'm going to throw everything at it, because you can kind of get discouraged when things don't go your way. So it's good that you're kind of more passively doing it, and you see how it develops over the years and things like that. But it's interesting you said about your family business, because my mum, when I was a kid, I mean, she's still a childminder, but back in the day, it was all from home. So I would come home from school and there'd be like, I don't know, like 50 children swaying from the ceilings, whatever. Well, what felt like 50. They weren't actually 50, of course. And she absolutely loves kids. So I can definitely resonate with that, because I have lots of experiences.
Yeah, well, that's how we
Memories.
started. Yeah, it was my mum in the house doing, looking after maybe 5 or 6 kids, and then we just expanded from there. So, I mean, I owe a lot of it to my parents' entrepreneurial spirit as well. They did a hell of a lot of work to set the business up.
Right.
And now we're in a position where we can expand it and grow it, and we really starting to learn about running a business, which is great.
That's
great.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything are there any transferable skills you've learned, something that you've learned from the business that you can kind of take away and use in the YouTube channel, for example?
That's a good question. I'm not actually sure at the moment, because this is very much focused on just me doing everything by myself.
Yeah.
It's a very solitary pursuit. Besides this conversation, which is great, by the way, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, but it's good, isn't it? Because I was definitely reluctant to start. I like the idea of collaborating with people in person, so I was kind of reluctant about doing it online, because everyone was doing it, but it was also like a quality thing. I didn't like the idea of it being like rubbish quality. But yeah, having people to talk about these things with makes it a completely different ball game, isn't it? And it opens up the level of conversation, the topics that you're able to discuss, and being more spontaneous. It keeps it much more interesting, I think.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, I might have to actually end it here, because I've got some things to do this afternoon.
No worries, man.
But this was a genuinely enjoyable conversation, and I'm glad we managed to get the phone call sorted out.
Yeah, no, it's good talking to you, man.
Yeah, certainly. So what I'll send over what I've got my end, if you want to send over what you've got your end, and
sure thing.
I'm quite excited to get this up for people to listen to, so I'm hoping to have it done by the end of the day.
I'll get it done now. I think I'll put it on Dropbox or something like that, and I'll zap it over.
Excellent. Well,
brilliant.
Good luck with the content production, because
thanks,
I say,
man. I really like your stuff. So
I appreciate that. But it's really good to see, like I say, my channel's very old, yours is relatively new, and I'm interested to see how it grows.
Yeah, me too. We'll have
good.
to play it by
cool.
ear, see how it goes. All right,
Lovely.
Take care, man.
Yeah, have a good afternoon.
Ciao, bye.
Thank you for watching. I hope that you got something from this video. You can find my website at www.ollyrosaphoto.com. You can follow me on Instagram at ollyrosaphoto, Twitter at ollyrossa, and I also have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/ollyrossa. I'm not asking you to subscribe to that. The one and only tier that I've got on Patreon is entitled Your Money Would Be Better Off in a Savings Account, which is true, but now that making these videos is starting to take a lot more time, effort, and money with the setup that I've got, I figure if you get something out of those and you would like to support this channel, you can do so at Patreon. Again, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll speak to you next time.